Yubikey support coming. It is definitely in the plans. We just got to accelerate what we're doing with Daedalus. I would strongly advocate getting it out sooner rather than later, but it certainly is taking some time. But we'll get there. Okay, well, I'll just use my mouse just died for some damn reason. What is the goal of cryptography? Cryptography is really the science and art of secure communication. When we want to communicate with each other, we have a lot of features of communication that matter. So you think about CINA, you think about confidentiality, you think about integrity of information, you think about a repudiation or non-repudiation. You have to authenticate information, these types of things. So for example, when I say I signed the contract, well, how do you know somebody didn't replace the contract with another contract? For example, a will. I give all my money to Jane, but then you switch the will. I give all my money to Bill. Well, how do you know that the Jane one was authentic over the Bill one, right? Well, that's the point of the field of cryptography. You can hash the contract, and then you have a digital signature. So you have an authentication mechanism for that information, and then the digital signature allows you to validate that that was indeed the will of the person. And maybe you want to keep it secret until a particular period of time. Okay, well, that's what encryption's about, right? Timed encryption. You say, okay, we're not going to reveal that secret decryption key to see what was in the will until after I'm dead or after this date or something like that, after the children turn 21. Okay, for example, you could imagine a government for transparency has a automatic escape valve to declassify all of its data on a certain date with a dead man switch. That's the point of cryptography. And the goal is just basically to give you a toolbox that you are able to achieve your privacy goals, your availability goals, your integrity goals, your authentication goals, given an adversary. So an adversary is someone who's trying to get early access, corrupt the file, trying to change the signature, change reality, learn your secrets, whatever that might be. What a cryptographer does is the hypothetical, metaphysical adversary, they give them certain capabilities and models. So they say, oh, okay, they can do a chosen plain text attack or chosen ciphertext attack or this attack or that attack. And with these capabilities, they build a model that shows whatever they're thinking of is secure. So for example, we'd say, oh, okay, modern cryptography is secure in the classical sense. However, if you introduce an adversary with a quantum computer, perhaps this breaks some forms of crypto. There you go. And so that's what cryptography is all about. So it's you always start with a goal, you have a use, and then you have an adversary, and then you kind of try to prove around what you can and cannot do. And you look for impossibility theorems, and you look for clever constructions and hard problems, and it's deeply connected to mathematics because a lot of cryptography involves asymmetries where something is easy to prove but extremely hard to discover. So for example, public key crypto relies on you having a trap door that's your secret key, something that you know that's connected to a public piece of information, and it only goes one way. You can go from the private to the public, but not the public to the private. And so you look at like factoring of integers. That's an example of the secret key. It was one of the earliest ones to discover where, integers can be uniquely decomposed into prime multiples. And it's called the fundamental theorem of arithmetic. And so 15, for example, is 5 times 3. There you go. We like uniqueness in number theory. So that's one of the reasons why we decided not to make 1 a prime number. Of course, we'd always have to say excluding 1, right? You lose uniqueness because you have infinite chains of 1s there. So unique decomposition of integers, well, it goes easy one way. If you take 3 times 5, easy to get to 15. It's computationally very slow to go the other way, to take 15 and break it down to 3 times 5. If you don't believe me, tell me what is the integer factorization of 2 to the 1732nd power minus 1. There you go. You go ahead and tell me that. Take a little bit of time. Surprisingly long time. But if you happen to have the factorization, you could quickly multiply them together and prove that it's there. So you use something called the Euler Totient function, and then suddenly you can start constructing this elaborate series of key pairs where you have a secret and the adversary does not. And then as a consequence, you can encrypt things and decrypt things based upon what you know, what you share. So these mathematical constructions and the proof that things are hard, that's really the tools of cryptography, along with how to build proofs and do analysis. And what's so cool about it is a very interdisciplinary field. So these mathematical tools can come from any field of mathematics. For example, we have an emerging field of cryptography called Lattice-Based Cryptography. And it's basically using different mathematical primitives than what we use in RSA or the discrete log problem or these types of things, but it's very useful for post-quantum crypto. And it uses a fundamentally different type of math and much harder math, but more elegant, and it gives you more tools as a result. So it's very special in that respect. Now, closely related cousin to cryptography is information security. And what IS does is it broadens the context to how you're actually going to use it. So cryptography is more about arbitrary, abstract adversaries in certain models, and it proves capabilities within those models. Information security is about real life. So setting those models aside, what happens when we take this stuff and we actually deploy it in person? And there you have social engineering. There you have a situation where the crypto system can do everything right, but you can still fail because the skeleton keys that you give to your employees, they can be manipulated into handing them to an attacker. For example, the recent Twitter hack that happened, where they got Bill Gates's account and Obama's account and Biden's account. That was because a social engineering event convinced Twitter employees to hand over key credentials to outsiders. So the crypto was working well. The security system was working well. It's just the backdoors they put in for remote access for their employees were shared with unauthorized people. And information security worries about that stuff, and they do a phenomenal job with it.